everyone, welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and in today's first impressions video we have a proper classic for you today, the Airfix Fairey Rotodyne in 1:72 scale. Now this kit first came out in 1959 and it's been reboxed once or twice since. The last time, to my knowledge, was around about 1996. And this is the last iteration. Well, basically the kit never changed, it was just reboxing and freshening the box up for the market. So what is a Rotodyne and why did I buy one? Well, let me tell you all about them. So in the 1950s, Fairey, who are still in the aviation terms probably most famous for the Swordfish torpedo aircraft that had a hand in sinking the Bismarck. They were innovating in the 1950s in terms of aircraft. They held the airspeed record for a period of time with the Fairey Delta, which had the delta wing and the drop nose, which became the technology ultimately used on Concorde. And they had this, the Rotodyne. So the Rotodyne is a compound gyroplane. And so it's sort of a cross between an aeroplane and a helicopter. Quite innovative, and it held the helicopter speed record for a period of time. And the prototype that was built was very, very successful. The aim was to use it both for military and commercial purposes. Now, it was a government-funded scheme, and ultimately, because of the amount of noise coming from the propeller arrangement, it didn't get any commercial orders, and so the whole project got cancelled. But there is some nice imagery knocking around of the Rotodyne lifting a complete military bridge, which is something Fairey also was involved in, and there is some footage of it flying as well. Now, there isn't a Rotodyne in existence anymore. There is only ever the one prototype built, and there are parts of that surviving, knocking around, bits of fuselage sections and so on, but there isn't a complete Rotodyne anywhere to be seen. Why my interest? Well, I do like the quirky, and it is a bit quirky, but I used to work for Fairey for a period of time as well. Fairey as a company got broke up in the 60s and 70s. Chunks of it disappeared, and I ended up working for them on the military bridge side of the business for a while. So that's where my interest in some of Fairey's products come from. But yeah, this is the Fairey Rotodyne. It's a very old kit. It's been reboxed a few times, but that's all. So let's have a look at it and see what you get. So this is the 1996 box. It tells you it's a skill level 3 and it's 1/72 scale, and it uses the original imagery that Airfix was using right from the get-go in the late 50s. So we've got a Rotodyne there flying through the skies of London, Tower Bridge, and the tower in the background. So quite a nice little image there over the Thames. On this side we have Humbrol Paint shout out, tells us there's 115 parts and gives us the dimensions. There's a bit of tells you about the paints there, I beg your pardon. And this, it's interesting, if you get to the bottom it mentions Hella. So this is when Airfix, Humbrol, Hella were all sort of the same company, which is why you see some Hella kits released under the Airfix brand. At this end we have the same information we got on the front, and it's the same on both sides, and then on this end we pretty much have the same again. And then underneath we have a number of the Humbrol products being promoted there. I can remember those jars and tins. We have some history, the Fairey logo, and tells us about the skill level. So this is an end opening box, so let's open it up and take a look. It's a bit battered. It's been in my stash for quite some time, and I'm guessing some other people's stashes before that as well. So instructions first, we have what I like to call traditional Airfix instructions. These are the ones that I'm used to growing up with. So we've got Airfix, Humbrol mentioned here. We have a history. So let's see what it says just out of interest. The Fairey Rotodyne was designed to overcome the payload, speed, range limitations of normal helicopter design by combining the helicopter's vertical takeoff capability with the speed and range provided by conventional wing and engine arrangement. And so it goes on. So we open that up. It's not a stapled A4 format. We then have kit information telling you to study and so on and so forth. We have a limited key, much smaller now than keys you see in the Airfix instructions these days, and then we get straight into building up this kit. So we start with the pilots. Looks fairly minimal, I would think. Got some drilling to do. It doesn't tell you what size. I'm guessing that's for these parts there. So in the old style instructions, you've got squares and you've got circles. So I'm going to test my memory of my childhood. The squares are decals, the circles I think are paint colours, and no, the circles are the kit part numbers, and the numbers without anything around them is the paint numbers. That's right, that's right. Okay, so we have pilots going in the cockpit, then we've got the cockpit back wall, and interestingly the front wheel attaches to that, and then we've got the dial array and what looks like a decal going on there. Oh, maybe, yeah, so maybe that is a decal going on there as well. Instrument panels, I would think. Then we've got step 3 and step 4 is putting the windows into the fuselage halves. So lots of individual windows there. Then we're building up the rotor prior to putting the blades in, which sits in there. So I'm guessing from the looks of that that should rotate. Put the two fuselage halves together with that cockpit in. So I'm guessing we build up the nose around it. Then in step 7, I know they're nice clear instructions actually, aren't they? You know, all the images, even though it's arrows and stuff, all the imagery is clear and separate. You can see why I quite enjoyed Airfix kits as a youngster. We've got the two wings, they're sort of like stub wings, being put together there in 7 and 8. And then we've got the tail assemblies in 9 and 10, which look quite complex, but we've got working flaps, so that's all good. That's really nice. Then in step 11, we're adding the wings, adding the tail, and what looks like a single glass canopy nose there. So that'll be interesting to have a look at that. Step 12 and 13 are taking us through building up the engine nacelles, which includes the propellers and also the landing gear that goes in there. There doesn't seem to be an up option. It is down or down as options. But there's quite a few parts on there. I can see why this was classed as a level 3, because this is quite complex for old Airfix instructions. So you used to get 2 pages or 2 images, one building it up to sort of halfway and the other one building up the second half. But they've broken this down, so actually this is quite a complex little build for the time. We've got the landing gear flaps and bits and pieces, the doors there. So I'm guessing you could, it doesn't tell you that, but you could omit them and put them together. Although in this time frame, them going together and fitting properly is unlikely. They didn't tend to fit particularly well. And then we're doing the same with the nose. Not quite sure what they are. 15 and 16, no idea what they are. I'm sure it'll become clear when we flip the page over. Ah, yeah, okay. So it's the two doors that open up at the back end. So it has a clam style door opening system. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. So that'll work as well. So there's lots of moving parts on this. Then we've got the rotor blades going in. So we've got two little parts for that. We've got the main rotor blade, and then the lump on the end is in two halves. And then we plop that in and it should rotate. So 20 steps. I missed, there's a little ladder there. So again, open or closed on the door. Knowing what the fit's likely to be, probably open. Then we have a paint shout out at the back. So I used to love these, black and white, and then they'd have different patterns in the boxes to denote the different paints. Sometimes it was a bit challenging to know what was what, but we have 11 and 22. Now I think 22 was white. 11, I can't remember. I mean, it's silver now. Was it silver then? I'm not sure. I am not sure. We have quite a few decals being shouted out as well, which will be interesting to see. But there's quite a long list of colours there. And obviously some of these will have been shouted out during the construction. Yeah, might want to look at some colour photos for reference, I think, on that. Let's have a look at the decals. Right then, the decals. And actually, they have survived really well. There is no noticeable yellowing on there. And, you know, we've got the old sort of style of lots and lots of film. So we've got quite a large margin at the top. Not so bad at the bottom, and then the two words are spaced correctly by using the decal film. But look, the controls look really good. The decal for the controls looks really impressive. And the sharpness of the decal for the time is really good with the Fairey logos, and the registration number. Whether that's going to fit around the windows will be interesting, but yeah, they don't look too bad at all. So it's going to be a little difficult to go through them sprue at a time because it's the old-fashioned tree. Actually, most of the parts have come off. So what we're going to do is just work through them a bit at a time until the pile has gone. We'll start with the two propellers. So if you like flash, you're going to like these. Look at them. Not a straight edge on them. And then we've got some really heavy mould seam just underneath. Everything that we'd expect on a kit of this age. But you clean that up and it will be beautiful. So we have two of those, both in the same condition. But yeah, once cleaned up, they should look all right, I would think. So fuselage halves next. Needless to say, they have raised rivet detail, but there is lots and lots and lots and lots of it. And it's beautiful how much rivet detail's on there. And look at that for fit. that is going together really nicely. Really nicely. But of course we've got lots of sink. I mean, tons of it, top and bottom. So they will be where our joining points are. I mean, they've made those proper long, which has resulted in lots of sink. So we will lose some of that rivet, but if we're careful, we can minimise the damage there. So there's a load more there, same issue. But actually, everything's fairly straight and looks fairly good. We've got some doors depicted in the top there, which look quite nice. And once we've cleaned that up, I think that's a good little starting point. That, and it gives you an idea of the size. So that's going to be where our doors won't go out any further than that roof line, and our nose will come out just a little bit further than that. So yeah, actually, it's been a while since I've looked at this. It's making me think we could be up for doing this one soon. Right, let's have a look at these. Look at these, how big they are. They are whopping. And again, lots and lots of detail on the top. Rivet detail. There is little pips on them which need taking off. But there's little fastener details on the end. That should clean up quite nicely. And there's one actually attached to its sprue. Right, I'm a bit worried that that might get damaged, so I am going to cut that off while we're here. Save it from itself. There we go. So that's two of the propellers. Let's see if our rotors, I should say. There's another one. Yeah, all good. And we'll cut this one off as well. Because what's happening is these are twisting and we're going to damage the blade there on the trailing edge. Okay, then let's have a look at the wings next. So again, lots and lots of raised rivet detail. That's two males. Let's do a male and a female. I've got some ejector pin, proper solid ejector pin flash there. Right, they're not going together. Let's try those two. There we go. So lots of rivet detail again. It's all very nice. The fit is really, really impressive for its time, and look at that. Click together, doesn't fall apart or anything. That's fantastic. So engine nacelle will go underneath there, slung underneath there. So that's our top surface. So yeah. And I'm going to assume that the fit on that one is just the same. Yep. Bit of clean up on, quite a bit of heavy seam, but they look quite nice actually. Right, engine nacelles next. Let's have a look at these. Try and marry a couple up. There we go. So, first one, again, fit is really nice. There's a little bit of sink in the bottom, but it's not too bad. And there's sink in the top, but there isn't much in the way of rivet detail on the top, so that'll clean up okay. But look at all the detail on it. It's really pretty. have a look at that one. Yeah, that's good. Let's see if we can sling that under a wing. There's no way those location pins are going in those holes, but that's the general idea. Yeah, surprisingly good actually. Okay, what have we got? This is the base of the cockpit. There's nothing much to that, unfortunately. And we've got one of the flaps, again, raised rivet detail. Just need to take the seam off. It's a bit heavy, but it's in keeping with the rest of the tail, I think. And there's the rest of the tail parts. All nicely moulded, actually. I've got some tooling damage there that's showing up, but could very carefully remove that with a small chisel. Yeah, all sorts of little delicate parts on there. There is some sink, but we expect that given the age. That's the part for the rotor to make it rotate. Let's have a look at this bit of tree. So most of the parts are still attached to this actually. So we've got the pegs there, which I assume are for the two engine propellers. We've got the control sticks and the seats, which are minimal in their feature. We've got one of the pilots there. Pilot's quite nice. He's in his civil uniform, but you could swap that for military if you wanted to do a hypothetical military version. Then we've got the engine fronts. They look a little rough, but they'll clean up all right. We've got the nose tyres there, the small ones, which again should clean up okay, and some form of nose. Is that spinner for the... No, it's too small. Not quite sure. That might go on top of the rotor, which is... That's one half of it at least. Yeah, turning the right way around. Quite a nice looking pilot, that. It's our bulkhead, which has holes there for you to mount your forward wing. I'm not sure if the ejector pin marks at the front or the back, but either way, easy to clean up. Seems to be more sections of tail by the looks of it, but lots of panel lines and access hatches and all sorts of details on there, so it's absolutely not bereft of detail. Let's have a look at this one. We are nearly done with the grey plastic parts at least. Right, appear to have a little bit of damage on that one. You can see the stress, but this is more tail parts. The dial array waiting for its decal to bring it to life, and the doors there. And there was no seats or anything inside, but I don't know whether there actually was on the prototype. Yeah, I mean, for its age, I think that's quite a nice little kit, actually. And on this last tree, we've got the doors there for the undercarriage, and look how thick they are. It's some fun to thin them out and make shape of them. Same with the wheels. Maybe we could replace those, but then don't want it to be weak under the weight of it. Those are the bits that go on the rotor blades, and our wheels and tyres, and the other half of our rotor, the steps. Blimey, that's how they were on their sailing ships. But not too much cleanup on them actually, not bad. Right, now in this bag I have the clear parts, so. Let's have a look. So first off we have the nose, which I think really needs wrapping up a bit better. Now usually what I do is I put my finger at the back and see how distorted it is, and then say actually that's not too bad. In this instance it's very distorted, really couldn't be more distorted if they tried, but once broken up with some paint it'll look the part, won't it? You've got raised lines, so actually not too difficult to paint in. Bearing in mind that this was designed for hand painting, I think it should look alright. So that's the canopy, and then the rest of them are these windows, all of which have some sink in them. And whether we could polish those flat and buff them up, quite possible, but can you see the little circle of sink in the middle of them? But they're very clear, lovely and clear, and not much in the way of distortion in them either, so we'd have to think long and hard about how we paint the inside of that fuselage. Thinking maybe a sort of a pale grey or something like that. Anyway, that is our clear part, so if I put those back in, and I'm going to wrap that one in a bit of tissue paper. So there you have it, the Airfix Fairey Rotodyne in 1/72 scale. First impressions, well, subject matter I think goes beyond interesting, it's unique, and I think it's very eye-catching. So yeah, I find it a fascinating bit of aviation history, and actually the kit surprised me. I mean, it's a long time since I looked at this. I've probably had this 10, maybe more years now, so I need to get around to building it, because actually when you hold those parts together, the fit's not bad at all. So other than a little bit of flash and seam clean up and filling some sink here and there, that we could build that up and make that look fairly cool, I think. So looks like 11 was silver back in the day. So yeah, I think I'm looking forward to building this, and I might need to make sure that I don't forget about this one again, because that was quite an interesting little kit. So there you have it. If you do come across this, that I do see them popping up from time to time on places like eBay. If you do see one and you fancy a bit of aviation history, then you know what you're getting. Hope that was useful, at least interesting. Take care everyone, enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon.